Broads Media.
Wow, the Flyers made a big move today. I can't believe we're sitting here discussing it, but we are. Before we hop into it, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button as well. I love you all so much. Thank you for the support. If you're looking to buy tickets to go to any NBA, NHL, NFL game, use the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off. $20 off. Take the 20 right from my hand. Get yourself to a game today. SeatGeek, promo code BROADS. And lastly, TikTok at Broads Media. Check it out. We're implementing some new things. Thank you all so much and enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. This is a disappointing day today. Some might look at it as, hey, they fired AV and they fired Michel Therrien. Good, they suck. Get them out of here. But I look at it like this. Chuck Fletcher made some pretty impressive moves this offseason that I was excited about. And even if you believed that there was too much optimism and there was too much positivity involved when you trade Jake Voracek for Cam Atkinson, when you sign Derek Brassard and Keith Yandel, when you bring in Ristolainen and Ryan Ellis to shore up the decor, and you might have questions about their 5-on-5 play, but they did bring a lot of different intangibles and a lot of different skill sets to the table compared to what happened the previous season where Matt Niskanen retired on you, and then you had to scramble. You brought back Justin Braun, who's been a big help to you so far this season, ironically enough. Phil Myers was out there, who's having a tough time finding his way. Nolan Patrick is having a tough time trying to find his way. So what you gave up for Ryan Ellis and what you brought in, it was clear that it was going to at least be a step in the right direction. So even if you were a little more skeptical than I was, thinking that Chuck Fletcher made some promising moves to put yourself back in a playoff position, there's no way in hell anybody saw it get to this level of free fall where they're losing 8 straight games. They're an absolute disaster. They're a mess. They're losing 7-1. 7-1. Look, I'm not surprised that this move happened. I think I am surprised on the timing of the move because Chuck Fletcher made it clear, look, I'm trying to buy some time here to get back some of our players. And in my heart of heart, in the bottom of my gut, I don't believe this team is as bad as what it looks right now. It's not as bad as what it portrays, but unfortunately, they were never able to start the season off in a proper formula to see and assess exactly the team that Chuck Fletcher had in mind. Ristolainen missed early time. We knew Kevin Hayes was going to miss some time with the surgery and the injury that happened to him during that offseason run after last year in the situation that happened. So we knew he would miss some time. Then Ryan Ellis leaves, Derek Brassard leaves, Nate Thompson leaves, Patrick Brown leaves. And there is a fair argument to be made that a lot of these guys outside of Ellis, a lot of these guys, and Hayes, of course, fourth liners, Thompson and all that. So if you get more out of JVR, Oscar Lindblom, Scott Lawton, are we even having this conversation? Travis Konechny as well? Probably not. No, some of these forwards that we're disappointed with. Derek Brassard, at this point in his career, you're probably looking at him being a third center pair type of guy, or third line center type of guy, and you pair wingers around that. There's no way he should be playing second line minutes, and that's why, to begin the season, it was nice to see the success that they were generating, but would that be sustainable over a full 82? Probably not. His skill set is a little bit diminished at this point due to age than where it was, let's say, a handful of years ago. But that's where I'm really hurt right now because I didn't see this coming. Beginning of the year, that is. In the beginning of the year, I did not see this type of move coming. Where we are now, it makes a lot of sense. It's just the timing. So Chuck Fletcher's trying to buy time to get players back on the ice because he truly believes that's the stem of their issues. And it is true. But even if they are to come back now you're so lost and you're so defeated and there's no morale and there's no confidence that you're so beat that even if Ellis does return and Kevin Hayes gets more games under his belt, I don't see a way that they just snap their fingers and turn this bad bad boy around. And it doesn't help that Carolina, the New York Rangers, the Washington Capitals, these teams in the Metropolitan are just rolling on another level that's fantastic right now. It's so hard to play catch up. Look, I'm not ruling anything out. I've seen this organization lose 10 games in a row and make the playoffs, and I've seen them win 10 games in a row and miss the playoffs. So everything is still on the table. But, I mean, let's be realistic here. Colorado's coming into town tonight, second half of a back-to-back. You thought this is when they're going to do it right now? No, probably when there's a bit more breathing room. And if you look at the schedule, they did have a little bit more room here. Let me go to where they're at now on my schedule here. They play the Devils on Wednesday. Then they're off Thursday. They play in Vegas on Friday. They have a back-to-back then, too, as well. Friday, Saturday. Then they're off Sunday. They don't play again till Tuesday. But, you know, just to have it happen, boom, thrown on you right on the second half of a back-to-back after such an emotional loss yesterday with the fans booing as loud as they did, as they should have, let's be clear. When you hear the phrasing of what Dave Scott said, saying Chuck Fletcher supports this decision, that tells me that maybe Chuck Fletcher wasn't ready to do it right now. Not that it wasn't being thought about, not that they weren't going to make me, because I saw Charlie O'Connor put out a piece, and he covers the Flyers, of course, for The Athletic. He put out a piece on him and Mike Yeo, one-on-one conversation, and it dropped as soon as this news happened, as if he was sitting on this information. They knew something was going to kind of go down, and maybe some of the beat guys were being quiet and hushing on things, which is interesting, because I had an interview on 97.5 The Fanatic with Jim Jackson on Saturday evening, Saturday night, and he threw some words out there that made me wonder, but, you know, I wasn't diving too deep into it, but I let it sit in my brain and I let it stew, and now that we saw this, I kind of tie it all back together here, and it's like, aha, a lot of this does make sense a little bit. So, you know, just something to think about. But, yeah, with Dave Scott at the top here, he said Chuck Fletcher supports this decision. So, you know, it seems like Dave Scott is the one going, dude, we got to do it. We got to do it. This message is dry. This message isn't working. He always stresses the practice side of things. They had a little bit of time to get some practice work in, and it was the same putrid ever. I don't want to hear about how the first period was nice and the first period was solid against Tampa Bay, or at least a handful of minutes were, but then they found themselves down 2-0. It's just not good enough right now. There's no real moral victories, and that's why I've been a bit quiet on the Flyer front. Normally, I like to go game by game and break everything down, but this team, I'm telling you, free fall is the best way to describe it. And once it got to that level of disgusting and disturbing, I don't know what to tell you every single night. I was waiting for a little break to maybe just kind of analyze where they were, but I thought, okay, as soon as the AV news pops, you know, this is definitely a perfect time to kind of describe everything that's happening. But you're seeing the similar issues defensively, maybe not as bad as last year, which is telling you a lot about how putrid it was at that time. But yeah, I mean, you're having your problems, turnovers, defensive lapses. They can't even enter the zone very well. They're not setting up on the power, but their power plays peewee level hockey. I see U10 teams over at Holliedale or the skate zone provide a bit more spark on the peeper where they can set up easier than what they're throwing their way. So as of right now, or they're throwing the way, you know, they're throwing the other team's way, I should say, because whatever the Flyers are throwing their way now, they can't do a damn thing. They can't get through the neutral zone with any sort of buzz, and they can't set up. It's a joke. Now, what they're going to do right now is rock and roll with Mike Yeo for the interim nod. And right now, they're not looking to interview anyone. They're not looking to rush the coaching hire. Bruce Boudreau just got hired by Vancouver. I'm not a big John Tortorella guy. Look, I'm okay with rocking with Mike Yeo right now. He was a part of the press conference today, and there was one thing I really did like about his message. Now, it tells you where this Flyers organization is, and it's a complete joke. But getting back to not so much strategic side of things, X's and O's, we got to get back to just good habits. Good habits over and over and over again will naturally lead to better hockey. And it's just about the habits right now and not so much just forcing all this new systematic stuff on everyone. Let's get back to playing hockey that is tough to play against a brand where teams are going, uh-oh, we got to play the Flyers tonight. It's going to be brutal. And that doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. It's a work in progress. But what does this mean for the shake-up in the offseason? You know, I don't know. I don't know what the message is going to be from this front office. Chuck Fletcher, he ends up failing in his first coaching hire. Now, AV's not a bad coach. Let's not act as if AV doesn't know what he's doing. This is the nature of coaching in the National Hockey League. You look around, John Tortorella, good coach. It's just the messages run dry. Peter Laviolette, good coach. Message runs dry. Bruce Boudreau, good coach. Message runs dry. The list goes on how many of these coaches. It's the NHL, man. This is one big carousel where it's nonstop. Now, I think that there's times where some coaches make more sense. For example, right now, obviously, you want to always have the best coach available, but I think with how toxic and how fragile the players are right now and this locker room is right now, to bring in a John Tortorella, I don't know if that's really the right message right now. To bring in a Bruce Boudreau, and obviously he's not available right now, but I don't know. I could live with Bruce more than Tortsy, but right now, is that the time for that type of message? A John Tortorella move, a Peter Laviolette move, that's a let's go win a championship. Let's bring in this new voice. We got the team. We need someone to kind of push them over the edge a little bit, light some fire under their ass, and let's go. Right now, this place is fragile. This place needs they need to get back to the basics. They need fundamental stuff from top to bottom, and that's where they are. It's disappointing because to enter the season, it was not that way. And the fact that we're here already and we're taking, that's pretty much a 5, 6, 7 step back mentality. But that's, truth be told, that's exactly where they are right now. I know some are afraid of the name Rick Tocchet because of maybe his coaching record, or it's that typical standard Flyers tie that everyone wanted to get away with Ed Snyder because he was obsessed with that. I'm okay with the Rick Tocchet. I'm okay with I know one that was brought up was Quinn, who got fired from the New York Rangers, but if you look at the Rangers and their philosophy, he's not a bad coach, but they needed a change. They bring in Gallant, who's ready to let's go win a title. Now let's kind of change the gear after a couple years. With Quinn, it's this team. Let's just find a way to mold this thing back. And I hate to say it, but it's almost a stopgap guy. That's how you're almost looking at this right now, a stopgap style of guy instead of a go-getter. Are you in the position right now to be a go-getter? See, we know Chuck Fletcher and this organization from top to bottom at this point is basically going to be in a we got to be competitive mode. They're not going to strip it entirely down, although now I think it's fair to kind of have that conversation, which makes my heart bleed and it makes my eyeballs really sad and water up because there's no way in hell I ever predicted that I'd be sitting here on December 6th at 1:30 p.m. after a press conference of AV being canned. I thought we'd be here right now, but with G on the contract and, there's a lot happening here. JVR's contract, not worth it. Oscar Lindblom's contract, not worth it. I like the signing of Scott Lawton. He's very versatile, and I think he could show a bit more of what we saw. I believe it was against the Devils, where he had a goal, and then he had an assist. A little luck from the puck bouncing off the zebras behind the net and whatnot, but that happens all the time. You take advantage of those opportunities. I think Scott Lawton has more left in the tank, but it's not just the coach. Look, this is not just a coaching issue. If you believe AV was the problem here, well, then you're just far off. It goes so much deeper. Players are overpaid. Players are not playing well. Players aren't as good as we anticipated. Ivan Provorov, I'll be honest with you, there's nothing wrong with being a number 2, but I definitely expected more from Ivan Provorov. I don't know if I would ever thought he'd be a pure number 1, and you look around this league at the number 1, maybe he's not that, but I still believe there's something in between that and where he is right now, and there's too many common issues that I just can't get behind. And if you need a Niskanen and you desperately need a Ryan Ellis, where you're going from this disaster to looking really sharp with an Ellis and a Niskanen, then you're not as good individually as we thought you were going to be, and that's a damn shame. It really is. Now, you can win with an Ivan Provorov on your roster, right? It's not like he's damaging to your core as a whole. Not every team has 6 number 1s. No team has 6 number 1s. My point is, though, from an individual skill set, I think it's fair to say that expected a bit more from Provy to this point. There was some speculation about AV before the season began. And I'm not going to say I didn't value that, but my point was 2 years ago, you get 1 game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. AV's message was fine. Last year, it was a bit of a mess, but there was so much in play. The team got hit with COVID, you lose Matt Niskanen, all of that, right? I mean, it became a huge, hard way to kind of analyze exactly what you were as a team based off of the circumstances that they were going through. And it wasn't just them, it was the entire league, and other teams fought through it better than others, but seriously, no fans, and it was a weird, really weird, awkward 56-game schedule that it's hard to truly define who you are. Fine, you kind of write that off as a pass, but if there was some speculation on AV, who maybe threw the players under the bus at times and whatnot, because I think that was definitely a narrative that was happening where, not so much threw the players under the bus, but in the locker room, maybe there was a message being sent from AV going, you guys are making me look like shit. You guys are making me look bad, and now I have to go answer questions about it. I do remember hearing that there was some speculation about that type of tone, and yeah, I get that. That doesn't sit very well with some of these players, and that's why we hear coaches all the time stick up for the players and be super, super, super soft, because the alternative doesn't necessarily work. And there's also reports, now keep in mind it's from people who are going crazy in this league, that AV was a dinosaur and he was very old school and things of that nature. But the reason why I said, well, let's just cool the Jets a bit, because they had no issue with him the year before, and then the next year when they lose a lot of games, it's this guy can't coach, this guy's terrible, this guy's got to be gone, we lost him. It's like, no, give him a chance. In the beginning of the season, there was no problem. And honestly, even during the beginning of this 8-game losing streak, I didn't really see it as a message problem and a lack of buying in. It just gradually over time, as it was a 7-1 loss, excuse me, and these losses really got ugly, and the effort started to kind of snowball into poorer and poorer, and there were no answers. But then, yeah, ultimately, you kind of have your hands tied behind your back. But yeah, I feel awkward. I feel bad saying that. I almost feel like they're in a stopgap scenario. But I think what this does is, you kind of like the Phillies, where the systemic issues were so clear. I think this is a problem now where, and the issue is with Comcast Spectacor being at the top of the helm here and top of the top. It's not easy to kind of deal with that, but this is we might have to really strip this bad boy down. Like it's time. It's time. It's time to really analyze. I like Sean Couturier, and he's a player who's a special talent who you just signed. He's not, someone that I'm willing to kind of move ways with. You have a number one center who brings that 200-foot game that way. And I like Kevin Hayes healthy. He's just not healthy right now fully. Travis Konechny has to pick it up. Joel Farabee's going to be a dog, but I love G to death, and maybe this contract expiring. And I always said I'm willing to bring him back over and over again with way less of a cap hit, be more of a third-line guy. But the problem is they're not bringing anybody in who's better than Claude Giroux. And over this long period of time, there's never been anyone brought in who's bringing you that level of career that Claude Giroux has brought. And at some point, you need to bring in that next level. And look, you look around Crosby and you look around Ovechkin, they're not bringing in players that are better than those guys. And I'm not putting G on that tier. He's one step below. But my point is, there's not many teams that have like their guy, and then they just bring in X, Y, and Z. They bring in a Kuznetsov, they bring in a Malkin or a Gensel, and Couturier, once again, not on the Malkin level of things, and especially in his prime and whatnot, but that's your secondary complement, I should say, to where Claude Giroux is. And at the end of the day, they haven't done a good enough job kind of surrounding it. So maybe we gave Ron Hextall too much credit for the draft picks, where I'm not telling you they were a disaster, but they weren't as good as maybe we thought it was. They're nice players, but they're never that, franchise-changing, legitimate, here we go style of players, and that's kind of problematic and a reason why you're in the position that you are in right now. So, I hate to say stopgap coach, right? No one ever wants to do that. You want to bring in the best guy available, but, I also don't think this team's ready for a Tortorella. I don't think this team is ready for that style. And Mike Yeo, I'll say this. I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but hearing him speak today, he is right where he says he's been around a lot of different organizations. He's been around a lot of different ups and downs. He had the meltdown in Minnesota as the head coach, and that was ugly. He touched on learning experiences and learning, and he said, look, I'm not a young buck anymore. I'm not a young cat anymore. I've seen this stuff, and I've learned a lot about the emotion side of things and learned a lot about, kind of how this goes when you're facing this level of adversity, and there's an opportunity to spin it around, and he's excited for that when he brought up what happened with the Blues and under Berube and things of that nature. So, for what it's worth for right now, I'm okay with giving Yeo a chance here. Chuck Fletcher kind of made it pretty clear that for him, it was no promises, and he's got the interim tag right now. No promises for the long run. Another name I saw Crossing Broad throw out there was Jim Montgomery. Now, if you remember, excellent coach. Got a couple buddies who played for him in the USHL for Dubuque. Then he went to Denver. He had success everywhere at Dallas, but he did have some problems with alcohol, and then the whole Dallas thing happened where he was doing some poor things in hotel rooms with women and things of that nature. So, I don't know if that's the perfect road to go down right now either, but that name was mentioned. I don't know which direction they go. Right now, there's so many damn emotions flying through my body. Let's see what it looks like tonight against the Avalanche. Let's see what Mike Yeo can do from here. Let's see how this team responds to such a powerful move, because this is no joke. This is an extremely powerful move. And let's hear from the people. That's what we're going to do now. We're going to transition into the Anytime Hotline. First, I'll tell you about DeSimone Jewelers. They're my jeweler. I got my fiance's engagement ring from them, and I keep going back. Birthday gifts, anniversary gifts, Valentine's Day, you name it. They're a family-owned business located in Haddonfield, New Jersey, previously in Jewelers Row. Will, Lou, Nick, Mike, they're just A-plus people, and they really care about you. They educate you. They're passionate about jewelry. They work with you to get the best design at the most reasonable price you will find in the market. Custom jewelry design, jewelry repairs, appraisals, watch repairs, battery replacement, diamond setting, jewelry cleaning, and more. Their information is in the description, DeSimoneJewelers.com. And make sure you tell them that Broads sent you. It's very important. They will hook you up for sure. Now, I'll start with a comment here from Arm Zebra. Arm Zebra is a fantastic fan of the show. He's always hanging out in coffee with Broads and talking about this Flyers team, and this is what he stated. Let me zoom in a little bit. This needed to happen. After Chuck turned over 1/3 of the roster and the team is still bad, something had to give. Can't follow the definition of insanity. I like AV, but he seems to really be a one-year coach. After his first year, he's cooked. Now I don't believe this will be 100% fix. However, some players who usually are mediocre are just playing straight awful. The players have to pick it up too. Bye-bye, Michelle Therrien. Your power play hasn't been good enough since the COVID pause of 2020. I also found it interesting how the press release has worded saying that Mike Yeo will serve as the Flyers' interim head coach for the club's game tonight versus Colorado Avalanche at the Wells Fargo Center. Seems to me they will have someone lined up for the next head coach. I definitely think it's between Tocchet and Tortorella. We will see. I just want good, fun, and competitive Flyers hockey again. I miss it. Now, unfortunately, I don't know when we're going to absolutely get that, and I thought the wording was strange as well until I heard the press conference. So if that comment came in before the presser, well, then maybe your thoughts have changed, Arm Zebra, but I do think for at least the short term here, they'll be rocking with Mike Yeo. They're not just going to rush themselves into a hire, and I think that Chuck Fletcher knows that this is an important one. Look, his job is definitely not as secure as you would think after these type of situations play out. And oh, by the way, it's been highlighted that this organization now, not that this is Chuck Fletcher's fault, but has 6 head coaches in the last 8 years. This is a problem. That cannot happen. That's not a recipe for success. You cannot turn over the coach over and over again. And when that happens nonstop, hey, why don't we start looking within and looking at other issues on why exactly this isn't working and why the plan isn't playing out? Maybe it's the players. And I still truly believe deep down that this team is not as bad as they are displaying on the ice. These players, as Arm Zebra just alluded to, the players that are just average are playing piss poor, and the guys who are just average are playing horrendous hockey where, that's not truly who they are, and I can get behind that for sure, but at the end of the day, it's still not going to be good enough at all where, I'm more willing to just kind of look at another, and I was anti that for a while, and I was pushing back on a lot of the people that said, same Flyers hockey, we're watching the same Flyers hockey, because we never really had the chance to. We really haven't. Chuck Fletcher's moves as a whole, as an entirety, when you think about the full roster, we weren't able to see what that would have represented over 20, 25 straight games of them being available as a whole. And without the snowball of emotions and with the lack of confidence and it being where we are right now, and if you just start the season from the top, I really don't think we're here. I think it's all kind of a one big domino, and you can't stop. It's a nosebleed. It's just pouring out of your nose. You shove 3,000 tissues in there, and it's nonstop. And it's just going through. It's gushing through, and it's not going to really go anywhere. It's just maybe the nosebleed stops when you get the right head coach in place or when you really, really make systemic changes. And it might be from the top. The New York Rangers went through a rebuild faster than you. That's bad. All right, let's hear some calls here. Let's start it off.
Do the Flyers think they're the Canadians or something? Do they think firing their head coach is going to send them on some magical run? What the fuck are they thinking? Oh, my God. Oh, my God, this fucking sucks. This sucks. I'm not saying this. I don't know whether this is a good move or a bad move, but oh my God, where do you find a coach with this much credentials? This fucking blows. This sucks. Oh, this feels like a fucking kick to the fucking nuts. This is fucking shit. This is shit. I feel like this is like one of those signs where the Flyers this is one of those signs where it's like, yeah, this is why you suck, Flyers.
Yeah, they have been stuck in some really, really tough times. There's no doubt about it. And I feel I've really been numb to it all. Maybe it's because the Sixers do their thing, the Eagles, Super Bowl, this and that. And there's a lot to kind of have your head snapped around in a lot of different directions. But when you really see it being played out this way, it really is a smack in the face of a reality of check of how average and how up and down and playoffs, no playoffs, playoffs, no playoffs, playoffs, no playoffs, and how stuck in the middle they've kind of been over a long period of time. And I've always said with the NHL, you know, you don't need to be the top of the top of the top every single year. I mean, you look at the Habs making the Stanley Cup Finals, and they made some big decisions after that, which might show you what maybe the Flyers have to do, and look around with the Rangers and their rebuild. I mean, you can't be satisfied with that, but I'm just saying, right? Like the Habs make it, the Jonathan Quick-led teams in LA ended up making Stanley Cup runs, right? Like you don't have to be Tampa Bay every year for you. Obviously gives you a better percentage if you're built like Tampa Bay. Let's be clear here. But in the National Hockey League, being a team that just gets in, or you're not the best, but you're in the middle of the playoff pack, that's not necessarily a tragic place to be, because being hot at the right time is more important than anything else in this league. And not only in this league, we saw that happen with baseball, with the Atlanta Braves, with the Washington Nationals. But I digress. We're not here for that conversation today, because it is obvious that this organization has to look an entire new spot. And I think you're right. Whether this is the right move or the wrong move, it's not really about the what you bring in for AV at this point. It's just the fact that we're here, the fact that we're having this dialogue, the fact that we're breaking this down right now, and it actually happened. It's no joke. This isn't a dream. This isn't a nightmare. The Flyers have lost 8 straight, and they look like they're playing double-A hockey, double-A, B hockey right now in the National Hockey League. It's crushing to us fans that had such high expectations, reasonably so. It wasn't ridiculous to have higher expectations entering this year. It sucks. It sucks. It's a dagger, and it feels like someone just stabbed me in the side of the neck. So it's more about the reaction of, wow, I can't believe we're here, more so than anything AV is, or anything about Mike Yeo, or anything about what they do next. It's really just, wow, here it is again. Here it is again, another coaching change. They got to figure it out. They really do. They gotta look so deep within, but I don't think they will, because of how they're ran. It ain't about that anymore. It's not about the team. It's not about that. It's just stay relevant enough where you can still make money because you're Comcast. There's no owner that cares. There's no owner that's passionate. There's no owner that's dug in emotionally to do what's best for the franchise. No, it's let's make sure we're not terrible, and they are right now. That's why they did this. But let's not make sure we're terrible so people come to the building and come to the Wells Fargo Center to see Gritty. And let's have a commercial where people piss in a urinal, and maybe that'll be good. And speaking of pissing, there was a dog today, because they had dogs go out on the ice, some canines. Yeah, they did their business right on the center logo. How ironic is that? What's next?
I mean, it had to be done. Flyers need to fire someone, and they had to fire Alain Vigneault. And I don't want to hear the excuse that, the roster is just so bad. This is the same roster that had a great start to the season, and it's the same roster that only 2 years ago won 9 straight games and looked like one of the best teams in the NHL. Then the shutdown happened, and the team has not looked the same since. Even in the playoffs, the team was sloppy. So, firing Vigneault, I mean, I'm in favor of it, because, this team has hit rock bottom at this point. This is the worst this team has looked since 06-07, and everything went wrong that year. So, I don't know who we hire next, but maybe Rick Tocchet Tortorella. I don't know. I have no clue who we're hiring next.
I'm okay with Rick Tocchet. I really am. I know some might not be, but I would be okay if they go in that direction. They need someone that can settle things down. They really do. They need someone to settle things down. They don't need one of those Laviolette, Tortorella type right now. I just don't think that best suits this organization because they are fragile and they're ready to crack, and they need something to kind of just hold the emotions down for a little bit as they kind of get back on track as a full-on organization. And I just don't think they might not take that. They might hire a coach like that, but I don't know if they'll finish off the secondary part of that. Just keep in mind, I mentioned two things that need to happen. It's get a coach in here who can do the emotional support right now, and then on top of that, you need to pursue the franchise the right way, and I just don't have the biggest belief in the world that they will do that. Now, this team isn't exactly the same, though. See, we're talking about McEwen and giving McEwen more playing time, third-line minutes. I think he's done a great job, an excellent job at creating the most for an opportunity here for what he has been handed him. But if you're talking about McEwen being a top-9 player, you're just not deep enough. You're not deep enough. Brassard's out. These players are out. Joel Farabee's out now, and Kevin Hayes is out. It's problematic. He's back in the lineup now, but all of this all in all, and everyone's getting hurt, and they're just not available. This isn't the same exact team. You have Justin Braun playing top minutes. You have Nick Seeler playing as your everyday defenseman. It's just not. It's not. And a lot of these players are just not playing well at the same time. So it's not just the head coach. These players have to look within. You talk about the roster being bad, and you're saying they're not really that bad. I think to a degree they are. They are bad. They're not as good as what we thought they would be. This is now 2 years later. So JVR is not getting any younger. These players are not getting any younger. I think they have more in them than what they're displaying, but I don't know if their ceilings is as high. And I've been very vocal about that, specifically with Oscar Lindblom. And they gave him that payday. They gave him the contract, and they thought maybe he could be what he gave you that 1 year. I had my concerns, and I think it's kind of playing out right now. I will take one more.
Hey, bros. Yeah, I mean, I think the AB firing was definitely overdue, with just kind of the way he always played the fourth line after the team gave up a goal and they get hemmed in for 2 minutes and give up another goal or just tons of chances. And, I mean, you scored 2 on the Flyers right now, and the game's pretty much over. I also think, maybe with all the COVID shortenings of the seasons, he's been known to wear out his tenure pretty quickly. And I think that got kind of sped up with the shortened seasons, and it really wore on the guys. I mean, I'm hoping, we don't get Rick Tocchet, but I don't really know what our choices are at this point. This team just looks completely deflated.
They are definitely deflated. So there's a caller that doesn't want Rick Tocchet. I'm not banging on the table saying it's a definite no-brainer, but I don't know what direction they go into. I don't think they need to rush. I think if Mike Yeo is kind of your guy, and it's interesting because, are they going with this mindset of we got to make the playoffs here? Now, when Chuck Fletcher was asked about the playoffs and what he thought about this team, he said we got to get back to the basics. And he was sort of like saying, you talk about where the Metropolitan is right now, it's going to be very difficult for you to kind of climb in. But if you get back to the basics, well, then maybe you kind of organically put yourself back into the mix. But I don't see it at this point. It's kind of written on the wall. And I don't know what direction they go in. If it's Mike Yeo, it's Mike Yeo, and we'll see how they kind of respond from this. So that's basically my thoughts on everything. I want to thank everybody so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Broads, and I will see you next time.